All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's Facebook Live lighting critique. My name is Mike Tanzillo, and I want to get started by, first off, welcoming you back to my lovely series of Mike critiques from a wicker bed while on vacation. So, only a couple more episodes of this. I will be back in Manhattan on Wednesday or Thursday this week. So you will not be seeing this wicker bed for that much longer. To get going with the critiques today, I did want to start with a question. First things first, I usually like to kind of scroll through all the images so you guys can see the images that have been submitted. You can also comment in the Facebook chat. If you're watching this later on YouTube, feel free to comment in the comment section below, and I will make sure to circle back and respond to any of your inquiries or comments or questions or whatever. But first, we were asked a question in the student page that I thought was really, it was just a great question. So I wanted to approach it here. So Aaron Thomas asks, so I've been checking things out job-wise, and it feels like the majority of jobs fall under lighting artist are primarily for games. Personally, I'd love to work in film, although I haven't completed the job portion of your courses yet. I'm curious. Of course, I could be searching for the wrong thing in the wrong place, and the market may shift at any time. But what's your take on it? It's a great question. There's a few things. Number one is it's a little bit of a segment of the time that we're in right now. So you are correct in that there are more game jobs right now than film jobs. Because of COVID, because of the world, what's going on, film has been hit harder than games. Games are actually doing quite well. They are seeing an increase in sales, an increase in usage. They haven't been as affected by what's been going on. Film industry has been affected. No one can go to the movie theaters right now in most places. So film companies have been less interested in ballooning up for their productions. So that is definitely a thing that's happening. Not to say that the animation companies are doing poorly. I mean, like we've had a couple releases. The big one was the new Trolls movie, and that did just straight streaming, no in theater stuff. And although their overall sales were down, I remember reading an article about this. Like the overall sales were down, like less people saw it, but usually they have like a 50-50 split with the theaters. But with streaming, I think it's like an 85-15. Don't quote me on those numbers. But basically, they got a bigger share. So the studio itself actually made more money as a result of streaming it versus showing in the theater than they were anticipating. So that was a very good success. Also, usually the bigger animation companies are owned by film companies. So so even if animation is doing well, it's kind of like there's only some, like, if DreamWorks is owned by Paramount's struggling right now because they can't shoot anything, they can't release new movies, so that trickles down into the animation companies. That being said, I do think it's a blip. I think that as things start to progress further, people will, like, frankly, I still stand by this, that there's just more content that needs to be created in the next 5 to 10 years. Like I said, we still have all the major companies: Pixar, DreamWorks, Blue Sky, Sony. We have a wave of new companies who are trying to create original content, from Amazon to Hulu to Apple to Netflix, and they're pumping huge. Like Netflix got Scorsese to do a movie. They're just throwing money at these things, and it's only a matter of time. I know Netflix, I think they just opened a studio in the Los Angeles area too, and they're just they're doing their best to accumulate talent. So I do think this is just kind of a slice in what's been going on in the land of COVID. So I hope that's helpful. There were some really great answers there. I mean, like, because there are some things too, like there are just more gaming companies in general, I think, than animation companies. And they are different skill sets too. So there's some great answers in the channel, but I wanted to give you my take on that as well. So I wanted to kind of get into these. We're going to do, so what I wanted to do was I wanted to do Poker-Pus first, and then go through any of the individual other assignments as well. If you're watching this live on Facebook now, like I said, if you got questions, throw them in there. I will be circling back every few critiques to kind of go through them. So let's start with Donika here. So this is a really nice submission. This is the first time I'm seeing this. It feels bright and warm and sunny on his face. The tentacles and everything else feels in shadow. I think it's really cool. There are some areas that I think that we can improve upon it. And so looking at this, like thinking about the structure of this, because it's interesting that his head is in sunlight, because it feels like it should be in shadow, just judging by the space. I don't think it's a bad thing, but just something to be aware of. You may want to cut this shadow a little bit tighter, just to kind of make it more believable, because it looks like it's like way out here, then all of a sudden it kind of jumps right across the table there. Because I think it's a cool setup to have his face in the sunlight and the rest of him in the shadow. It's just a matter of we really want to see that. So there'd be that. The other thing that I think would be nice is if you darkened the area underneath the table, like maybe a little bit of ambient occlusion. Listen, I get that it's a bright sunny day, and I totally agree theoretically that you want that like a good amount of bounce light to kind of be going around, but just a little bit more darkness under there to really kind of ground that in, and just so we're really focusing on the characters there. And the other things that I think you can improve, I think the sand over here is getting a little bit too bright. I would just tone that down slightly. These objects in the foreground are nice, but they're a little too flat, and they're like, it'd be nice to darken them a little bit, just so because I think that they could really work well as a framing element. The water is pretty. I would like to see more atmospheric fall off, aerial perspective as you go back into space. You really kind of like look at some horizons at the ocean, because you really want the value of the horizon and the edge of the water to kind of fall more into place together, so you can really feel that depth, really feel it stepping back into space. The specularity on the skin is nice. This specular highlight is a little bit bright. I would try and either rough that up a little bit, or just make the radius of the light slightly bigger, and then maybe soften that or take down that specularity just a touch. But I think that's it. I think those are my main takeaways from this one, and I think that gives you a good spot to go from there. Let's take a look at the next. Back to this. Okay. Jenn has a great one here. I love, this is matching your reference really well. I love you've got the nice rim light going all around his head. I think that's very cool. There, again, just a few things here that I think that could really help the image, because I think the background looks really good. I think our main, because I'm like looking at this and wondering, like, our main focus is his eye gesture. And for that, I think we should up the eye white value a little bit. I think we can make that let me just do one example here. I think that we can make that eye white a little bit brighter and really kind of help draw the viewer's eye, because you really want to read this expression. And it's not much. It's just a matter of the eyes are just looking a little gray at this point. The other thing is that I really like the idea of him playing against himself in the just kind of the silliness of that there's this pot in the middle. And I think that we can up the kind of spotlightiness of the spot here in the middle and just push that a little bit brighter. It might just be a matter of adding just like another little spotlight with a soft edge to it to just kind of really kind of push our eye a little bit more towards the center of that there, to kind of be like, make sure that is part of the read of this. Additionally, I think we can go a little bit brighter on some of these cards. It's a little tough because let's see. Yeah, I don't want to brighten up too much around it. But yeah, just like a little bit, just so the cards can be, we're making sure to read that value. That's too much erasing, but you get the idea there. And then it would be nice too. So you've got these little rim lights, especially right here on this card. It'd be nice if that matched the nice greens that you're getting everywhere else. And it is just kind of strange that we're getting like this kind of hard speck right on the top of the card. You can see it here too, just like kind of really hitting rims hard. And then it's getting so dark in the core down here. So it'd just be nice to kind of balance that out a little bit. I think that's I think that's pretty much it. So I would just kind of hit those notes and see where we stand there. It might be worth getting a little more light on the visor too. I'm noticing that's kind of a universal problem, but just something to be aware of as well. There. Looking for more Poker-Pus. Okay. Mauro, good job. If you guys want to go, all of our previous critiques are on our YouTube channel. You can see Mauro does a great update here from the water was much murkier, much bluer. This does feel a little bit more like a fish tank. I do like that you've got a subtle shift in color from what you see up here through the water. Now I want to really push the story a little bit more. I think there's more that we can do with this. It feels like it's just kind of being lit over black. And I do see some of the scene in the refractions of this glass, but I'm not really seeing them in the set there. It's just a matter of let's start to read some of this room a little bit more. And I'm not saying you have to be you can still have contrast, you can still make it dark, but it's like, what's he doing there? What's the end game? What are we trying to accomplish? It's just a lot of stuff is falling into dark value, and we're not getting enough hints at the story and really feeling like the emotion of it. The set's very black. The light is pretty neutral in tone. It's basically, I think that the main hurdle you've accomplished that, and that's great. So now it's like let's push the story, let's push the shaping, let's really get get some more fun stuff going on here. Let's go back to looking at this. Yeah, because I think it would be more because I think now it just feels like I guess this is more the story is that it's like the card hand is all secondary, and while he was doing that, this fish died, and so now we're really kind of focusing on that. If that's the case, this light's hitting the fish a little bit too broadly, and we want to more rim it up. Yeah, maybe let's take a look at this next time, and I would just encourage you to keep pushing the story level, and we'll see where that lands up. So I'm deleting these as we go, so I make sure to not miss anyone. Tyler, okay, good stuff. Very colorful, very fun. I like the bounce light that we're getting off the water here. I think that's really cool. It feels a little green. This water feels very cyan blue, and then when it bounces up in this region here, it feels a little disconnected to me. I would like to feel that to be a little bit more of the bluer colors. And that's secondary, but looking at the character, I love that we have this caustic light in there. On his face, it feels very small. I think we can increase the size of that and take down the intensity. It feels very small and very, very intense. You can soften it just a touch. Just because on the face, it ends up looking like a problem as opposed to connecting it to the space around. It's okay if you get that level on this table down here, but on a character's face, you kind of want to minimize it a little bit. I think that I'm wondering how we can get more focus on the foreground, especially specifically on this table in here, because one thing would be to desaturate the greens in these palm trees. They are complementary to the orange light that's back there, and they're really kind of popping out that way. So desaturating them will help them fall back into space a little bit. Just wondering with this underlight, how do we get more light onto that table? Because really, we're not feeling very much of this underlight on the table. It would be nice if there was more light scraping up here. Yeah, because like the light source is underneath all of this. Yeah, so let's play around with that a little bit, and then maybe we can sneak in some, because like, do you see how you have this light here on his face? It feels like that would also sneak in there. So maybe we can play around with that, but really like make sure that we're feeling that the light is coming up from underneath the character in this pool, and not necessary. And like maybe that's a matter of toning down the fill light on the face too, with that light right there. But I do like the color scheme a lot more. I think that's working out really well on the character. I would just take a look at that, the underlighting, getting that background to fall back a little bit, and then maybe figuring out. And then once we do the underlining, we can take a look at the tabletop to see if we want to like hit it with some more light there. But right now it just feels a little bit even, and we want to just kind of play that up a little bit, and then read what's going on. So I think that would be a really good next step for you. Oh, and last one is this window back here. I think it's supposed to be stained glass, but I think everything's a little bit small. It feels like almost like noise back there. So I would it feels a little out of place, especially since it's not really conforming to the warm light, and it's also around him, so it's a little distracting. Just heads up there. See if we got any other Poker-Pusses in there. Oh yes, we have Asha's. So Asha, you had your reference here. Cool scene from the new Aladdin movie, very magical. Lots of cool light, like it's cool mixed with warmth. The warmth is almost neutralized to really emphasize this cool. You got the little cool hits in his hair, lots of specular hits around the scene, and it feels a little bit magical. It's also, this feels very stage lighting to me. This feels like it's almost like a theatrical performance, so I think we can kind of play that up too. In your example here, we're not getting that same coolness. We're not getting that same cool feeling versus the neutral tone light. The shaping in the background, like you see all these like, like little pockets of light here and here falling back in the shadows. And then we've got God rays coming in. Just a lot of variation back there. You see like this pocket of light, and then it kind of falls off in the shadow over here, and then more light there. Looking at this, like there's no distinction between sunlit areas and shadow areas. It's all very similar. So I would sneak in some light, kind of creeping in on some of these places. Maybe get some, after we get the lighting in place, don't do this for the next iteration, but eventually you can add some God rays coming down. The shaping on the character, let's look at that. So he's, looking at the object of his affection here, and the light's hitting that and shining back into his face. You could do something similar here with the cards, where there's, like there's a light shining down and really hitting the tabletop, and all we're seeing is the reflection of the light on the character's face from that. The tabletop itself looks very dark. I would check the shader on that, make sure it's picking up light properly. It looks very, very dark. And then it would just be a matter of, because the main things are just like we're missing shaping on the character in the background, and then really kind of getting that color palette to read as well. It just feels very neutralized. So I would work on those two, and then we'll see where we stand next time around. All right. I think that is, we looked at Donika's already. So I think that is all of the Poker-Pus examples. We'll just go ahead next and take a look at some of these other ones. We'll start with Alfredo and kind of work our way through. So Alfredo, Sir Desmond Rotundus is looking good. The key light's getting a little bright in here and kind of washing it out a little bit, and we're losing some of the detail in there. So I would pull that back a little bit. I think we can go darker as we go down the character just a little bit. I know we're trying to match that Hotel Transylvania look, but it's just like if I squint my eyes at it, if I blur up this whole thing a little bit, you'll see that, like, I guess there's a little more focus on his face here, but like I said, we need to tone that down a little bit. And instead of making that brighter, we can just darken down here just a little bit more, and I think that would help out a lot. This little speck hit on the wing is nice. Love the color that you're getting in the blacks. I think that's working out really well. It's just like the consistency in his skin from top to bottom. I think we can adjust that a little bit. It would also be nice to get a little variation in the cane. That's matching the skin tone very similarly as well. So maybe making that a little bit darker, or just something to kind of distinguish it from the rest of his body. It almost feels like another appendage there. Watch out for this eye ding in here. That's getting a little bit bright. Really save that for over here. And but yeah, I think there's a lot of good qualities. I like the color of the background, the way it complements the skin. I think that's our next step. I think that's a good spot for you. All right. Well, we'll just jump here to Shane. Shane is working on Mr. Bean. My first instinct on this, two things. One, careful lighting a character over black. It can make him feel brighter, because if you make a color over a dark surrounding, it'll actually make it brighter than it actually is. And also, it feels very CG. It's better to put the character into some context. In terms of the lighting overall, it's just too dark, and I feel like I want to push it up more into like this range. Like you could see from these levels that like we've got almost no values in the high range, and even as we get down to about halfway through, it's just like the very brightest stuff. So I would push it more into this realm. Shaping's looking pretty good. This rim, like as the key light gets brighter, I think that rim light won't be quite that bright, and that'll be fine. You're also running into the same issues that I found with him, which is that the specularity on his blazer is crazy. So make sure you either take that down before you render or strip it out by stripping out the specular AOV. Look at his eyebrows. His eyebrows are looking a little specky as well. His hair looks really good once we brighten it up a little bit. Like this specular highlight coming down is really, really nice. You've got these over here too. I think that's really great. So it's just a matter of getting those brighter, and then we can, like, just looking at skin tone, we could probably warm him up just a touch more too. That might be too much, actually. Just looking at skin tone, I think it's really what it is just adding a little bit of warmth in the shadows would definitely help that as well. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. The biggest thing is just watching out and making sure you don't allow those backgrounds to convince you that he's bright enough, because I think you can definitely push him a little bit more. All right, Kjelds is looking great. The red of the cars coming through. Looks like there's an edge right here that may just be a rim, but I would check that. I think the character's looking good. I would do a little bit more edge blur, and I guess this kind of comes down with this edge thing between the car and the background, just like, because it's super blurry back there. The car is super crisp, just like maybe like a couple pixels to kind of help smudge that edge. And I wonder if this specular highlight, like these specular highlights on there, are tinging a little bit yellow. They also look a little bit capped to me, like maybe they're falling into some sort of vignette in there. So just watch out for that, and I'll make sure that those go nice and bright. Like not too distracting, but just like their brightest point gets to a white. So it looks like there's something on her shoulder there. You might just want to check that out. And then I think that you could push her hair just a touch more. Just like the rim around her hair, just because it's such a distinguishing, it's such like her superpower, like it's her specialty, is this, and I think we can just push that just a touch more, something like that. I think that would be a lot of fun. But yeah, this one's looking great. Let's see what's, all right, Emma. So I'm sorry, last but not least, you work so hard in delivering all of these examples and references and stuff. So sorry to leave you till the end. Love this breakdown. I think this looks like the right setup. This looks like a strong setup overall, and I think that's really a testament to, it's just, you're getting it. You're doing a good job. Looking at the render, I think we can go brighter with the keys. Not so much in the diffuse, maybe just like a touch more, but really, again, it's just getting that specularity up in the skin. I know that you did. Actually, I don't think I included it. You do have a separate specular pass. Like let's pump it up a little bit. Let's either make the original render brighter or push a little more, because like I'm still not seeing very much specularity in his hair. So I think we can push that a little bit more, and then just keep pushing it into his key side. You don't necessarily need it in the fill side, but in the key side for sure. Additionally, I think the rim light on the screen left side could come around a little bit more, just because I want to create a little separation in through here. and down around his chin. You can really only kind of see it here on his shoulder. So I would just push that around just to get a little bit more separation of the on the fill side of the character. Eye dings could be a little bit bigger. They feel a little bit like very, very, very tight. It's funny because I was just watching The Good Dinosaur this weekend with my son, and they used very like small eye dings, and I don't like. For me, it felt like it felt off a little bit, and I was surprised that they made that choice, just because usually like the slightly bigger ones feel a little bit better, especially on like cute, sympathetic characters like Arlo, the main dinosaur. For those of you that don't have children and don't watch these movies regularly. Gorgeous film, by the way. The environments in that film are just stunning. So I would definitely, and there was a lot of times when I should probably just go and do a breakdown of it now, because there were a lot of scenes I was like, oh, that's so good, like where they directed the viewer's eye with certain light choices, and I thought that was very cool. Anyway, I won't go off too far of a tangent on there. But I think that's the best bet for you, Emma, is to push the key light brighter, get some more specularity in there. Push that rim light so it gets more on the screen left side. Increase the size of those eye dings. Make sure the specular light's hitting the hair. And I think then it would be in a pretty good spot. Yeah. All right. So I think that's everyone for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Like I said, I guess I do this. I was like, make sure, you know what? I was going to say, if you haven't had the chance to, if you didn't get a chance to watch us, make sure you check us out on YouTube. But I'll say it this way. If you are interested, if you've enjoyed this critique, make sure you check out our other critiques on our YouTube channel. We also have lighting technique stuff. We answer lots of questions. We've got some other series going on, and there'll be more to come there too. So make sure you subscribe to see the new updates. So I hope you all found this beneficial, and I will talk to you all very soon. All right. Happy lighting, everybody.